Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Sean and today I'm doing a video not many people will probably be interested in, but oh well. I kind of have a writing update. So this is a November writing update. So several months back, maybe a year ago, I did a writing update for my book Blade of Perdition, which I will link up there. So assuming you've seen that video and are familiar with it, basically where I left off, I was on book 3 of Blade of Perdition. I just finished book 2, so I was starting book 3. And at that time, about a year back, I don't know when exactly, I wrote the first half of the first chapter, and Bird. I don't really know what happened then, but I stopped writing then. So I don't know if I didn't know what to do, or if I just got tired of it, or if something else came along. But I just wrote like the first half of the first chapter, just like 2 pages. About a week back, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks, I don't know exactly, I decided, you know what, I want to do something productive, so I decided to try getting back into Blade of Perdition and just write the second half of that chapter. So I sat down and I kind of realized, I think, what my problem was. Basically, book 3 begins with Blade, the main character, thinking that Cammy, his best friend, has died. Quick recap, the series is an Angels and Demons series where, as spoiler-free as I can get, Blade joins the side of the demons and Cammy joins the side of the angels. This is a spoiler, but I can't really avoid it. Book 2 ends with Cammy receiving a mortal wound, and it's left unclear if she lives or dies. You have to read book 3 to find out. So, book 3 begins with Blade thinking she is dead. So, I began to write, and I wrote what I thought would be the second half of that chapter. So it was all looking good. So then I thought, okay, well, now I'll switch to a Cammy chapter. Because, again, spoiler, it's not much of a surprise because this is book 3 of 9 of the main series. So obviously, you know she is alive still, somehow. She's still going to be in the story. So I was really struggling thinking, well, hang on. If readers know that Cammy is still alive or still in the story and Blade thinks she is dead for like his whole storyline for the whole book, I mean for that book, for book 3, he thinks she is dead, how will readers really stay engaged with that? I mean, I know I could have it just be, you know, the reader's knows that she is alive and he still thinks she is dead. That could work, but I just really wasn't feeling it because I just thought, well, if the reader knows she's alive and Blade doesn't, then I don't think the readers would probably feel like what he feels. They would know, like, it's okay, dude, she's alive. Quit whining. That's all he's doing is just whining, thinking she's dead. She's not. Chill out. So, I don't know. I just didn't really like how that was, like, setting up to go. So, I stopped for maybe a couple days just to try to think about it, try to figure out a way to, like, write it in a good way to keep the emotional investment. Then, something that occurred to me, a major epiphany, was I could have like the first part of the book, the first half of book 3, be set entirely from Blade's perspective. Because at this point, readers will be uncertain because of the way book 2 ends, if Cammy is alive or dead. So, book 3 begins with Blade thinking she is dead. But then it just sticks with Blade. It's Blade chapter, Blade chapter, Blade chapter. You don't get any absolute resolution on if Cammy is alive or dead for the whole first half of the book. You don't know. As soon as I thought of this, I really knew it was the right decision, and a parallel I immediately picked up on was Lord of the Rings. Because for, I think, The Two Towers, as well as Return of the King, J.R.R. Tolkien split up the perspectives, so he didn't like have, you know, storyline A, cut storyline B, and jump back and forth between them like it is in the movie. What J.R.R. Tolkien did is he told, like, all of the Fellowship chapters at the front end of the book, like all the Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas chapters all in the first half, and then the second half of the books he would show Frodo and Sam and what they're doing. So this is very much the same way. First you get Blade, and then you cut back and you see what happened with Cammy, and it goes through her storyline. So that was a major development, an epiphany. So as soon as I thought of that, I was like, okay, that's the way to proceed here. So I began writing, and I churned out a few chapters, and it was going good. But then I got to what should have been a really momentous occasion in this series. Because so far to this point in book 3, the whole series has been leading up to this question about who is Blade's father. And what they're doing in the series all up to this point is they are trying to find his mother, because his mother will be able to answer who his father is. And basically, the identity of his father will have a major impact on Blade's importance. He is important because of his father, so we need to find out who the father is. To do that, we need to find the mother. And the problem I was having with that is I finally got to the scene where I revealed who his father is to readers. And I was just like completely bored by it. It was a completely like anticlimactic moment. It was just so dull. I was not into it. So when I was writing it, what should have been like the da da da, it's this person is the father, I was just like, I'm not feeling this at all. And so I paused for another couple days to try to think about it. How do I write this scene to pull off this reveal? Then I kind of began to think, what if I actually have this reveal in the first book? Basically, the way the first and second books go is these demons basically kind of tell Blade, you might be the most important demon who ever lived, based on who your father might be, but we do not know who your father is for sure, so we need to find your mother. And that's all you ever get for the first 2 books. And so when I finally got to the reveal in book 3, it was anticlimactic to me, because when I finally introduced the identity of the father, even myself, I was kind of like, who's that? I mean, that's just imagine what I think readers would say, is just like, who's that? Why should I care? That name means nothing to me. Now, I know I could set up the name more earlier on, but I just really wasn't feeling it. So I was trying to think, okay, well, how do I do this? So then I just kind of decided another epiphany. What if I just have the reveal in the first book? So the way the first book would go, instead of just saying, we don't know who your father is, we need to find your mother to find that out, what they can simply say is, we aren't sure who your father is. We think it might be this guy, though. And this is who this guy is. This is why this guy is important. This is the history of this guy. So this way I can introduce this character to readers more. I can be out in the open saying, hey, this is who we think the father is, but we aren't sure. That is why we need to find the mother. So when I came to the decision to have this reveal in the first book, I was kind of dispirited in a way, because I'm on book 3 and the first 2 books are just like leading up to this question, like, who is the father? We don't know. We have to find your mother. So I knew if I have this reveal in book 1, I would have to rewrite every one of those scenes, really, because they would have already told him who they think the father is. But this is also kind of where my decision comes in to actually call this draft 0 draft. So usually for all my books, I do 7 drafts. For this series, I decided to do a 0 draft first, and I've heard other writers mention that name before, 0 draft. It's kind of like a brainstorming draft, or where you're just kind of jotting down basic ideas for the story. Maybe you write certain scenes in the book where you know, okay, I want to have this scene, so I'll just write that. That'll go somewhere in the middle. I want to have this scene, that'll go at the end, so I'll just write that. And that's the 0 draft. It's not written all the way through. I thought I would do the same thing for this book because it's like a 9-part main series. And I had ideas for each of the books, but not the whole story all the way through. So I thought this would probably be a good idea. Do a 0 draft. And then once I write down all the scenes I can possibly think of, then probably having a better idea of the story, I could go back and rewrite the whole story, knowing how it all unfolds at this point. And that would be the first draft. So, Having made this change, or decided to make this change to have this reveal about Blade's father in the first book, it kind of spoils a lot of what I wrote in book 1 and 2, which sucks because now I have to rewrite all of those. But instead of going back now and rewriting it, what I decided to do, and I knew this like as soon as I made this decision to change this stuff, is I'm not going to go back and rewrite it at this point. I'm just going to start at the point where I decided to basically make that change. Basically, the point I was currently at, I write the book assuming Blade was told in book 1 who his father is. I am doing this because in one of my first books, German Derelict, I basically like edited as I went. If I like had any ideas for a rewrite, I would go back and I'd rewrite the first chapters or whatever, and I'd edit the first chapters and I'd polish the first chapters and all that. And as a result, that book is like the least favorite thing I've ever written, because I was so focused on like rewriting the earlier parts that I was never telling a consistent story. And another major thing is, I do not want to go back and rewrite the book, because I may start rewriting it and then decide, oh no, I actually want to make another change to it, so everything I just corrected is wrong again. I do not go back and rewrite anything. I just keep going where I am currently at, because I may come down to a point further down the road where I decide like, oh, this doesn't actually work. Maybe I want to actually have the reveal in book 2 instead of book 1 or whatever. So I don't want to go back and like start tweaking anything I've already written. This is the 0 draft. So it's okay if I change things along the way. I will rewrite it later and I'll have a better idea when I get to that point what I want to do with it. So when I go back to do the first draft of the book, which sounds kind of weird, when I go back to rewrite the book, essentially, I will have a better idea. Okay, this is exactly when I could have the reveal. And from that point on, I could rewrite every scene to fit that. Now, the third epiphany kind of, and I actually have to give a major credit to my mom here, because my mom is the one who gave me this idea. So thanks, Mom. Now, I was talking with my mom about this book because basically I kind of need someone to talk about my books with to get ideas, because often if I like run into a jam where I'm just like struggling figuring out what to do, what helps me greatly is simply talking about my book. And like 95% of the time, I will come up with a solution on my own during that conversation. But if I just like sit at my laptop trying to think of what to write, it won't come to me. But for whatever reason, if I talk with someone, the idea comes to me. I think the reason for that is because if I am not able to explain it to another person, then readers will definitely not understand it. I will definitely not be able to explain it to readers. So if I can explain it to someone in person, then it'll work for readers. Anyway, so I was talking with my mom about this idea to go back and actually have this reveal about Blade's father in book 1. And my mom had the idea that instead of just having them say like, oh, we think it's this one guy, she suggested that all the different characters should have different opinions or theories about who his father is. Instead of just saying, oh, it's this one guy, we think that's who it is. Have all the different characters say, you know what? I think your father's actually this person, and this is my reasons, or these are my reasons for believing that. And when my mom said that, I was just like, oh, thank you, Mom, that's brilliant. And I probably wouldn't have thought of this myself, because I'm like very single-minded, I guess. Like, I just think, okay, I want to introduce this character, so that's what I'm going to do. But my mom thinks a little bit more like outside the box, I think, because she is a reader herself. She probably reads more books than I do. And so because of that, she is very good at like understanding stories and stuff. So even though my mom isn't really a writer, she's a reader. And because of that, she's good at like understanding plots and stories and like where stories fail and what would make stories better. So she suggested, instead of just having the one theory about, oh, we think this is your father, have several theories. And that way I'll be able to add more mystery to it. And instead of just like spoon feeding readers, like saying, it's this guy, I can have people saying, we think it's this guy. No, I think it's this guy. And that way I could develop all these other different characters. And I could also develop those characters as well, giving those theories. So, for instance, there's one character who really doesn't like Blade and kind of looks down on him. So, he would kind of be of the opinion that like, oh, your father is basically probably a nobody. And that would help further his character. And it would also add some mystery or intrigue for readers because they may think, this guy may actually be the one who's right. And this way readers can kind of pick on their own, like, this theory really makes sense to me. Because if I was just to do it my own way, where it's just the one guy, we think that is your father, readers will know, and this is going to sound stupid, but readers will either know that is not the father, or it is. And that's just really not very intriguing. So it makes a lot more like interesting for readers to have more diversity, more diverse opinions where they can think for themselves more and they could kind of figure out more on their own. You know what? I think this is the father. I think Sean is trying to bait and switch me. I think he's trying to like build up this character when I think it's really this person. So anyway, that was just a brilliant idea and it adds so much characterization to it and adds so much storylines and it's so much better than just having the one theory, we think this is the father. Have several different theories about who the father is. That will make it more interesting to readers. So I love that idea. Thank you, Mom. Okay, anyway, I have been a writing fool. So like I say, I've really just been working on this book for maybe 2 weeks now. And currently I'm at 25,000 words. Last night, or actually yesterday, I wrote 10,000 words. So yesterday was a marathon, 10,000 words, about, I think like 35 pages, maybe 40 pages. So I just kept writing. I was a writing fool. I am currently at like the confrontation that would be like the end of book 3 from Blade's perspective. They are at the final battle. Originally, it was just going to be a confrontation between like Blade and like maybe like 4 or 5 other characters, but it turned into a battle between 900,000 fallen angels and demons. So, big battle. So I'm currently writing that. Like I'm at the point where the armies just had like a meeting in the middle with the commanders and they're going to fight. So they went off to their respective sides and they're about to collide. That is where I'm currently at. So that's real fun. So I'm pretty excited about writing this because it's going to be pretty cinematic in my head. It will be a pretty epic looking battle, I think. So I'm excited to write that. And this like chapter would end in some way maybe with the reintroduction of Cammy. She is still alive. Bum, bum, bum. And then it would switch over to her chapters and that would be the second part of book 3. Anyway, that is kind of it for the update. So I'm really excited about this. I am almost done with the first part of book 3. I will probably finish it in maybe an hour or so, hopefully. So that's really exciting. I'm excited to write this like big final battle. I'm excited to switch over to Cammy's chapters and hopefully they don't really give me trouble. Hey y'all, it's me. Well, I done goofed. I was just editing this video and I think I realized I deleted accidentally a chunk of like an update for you guys. So at this point, I meant to have an update where I finished the second half of book 3, which would have been Cammy's chapter. I mean, her storyline. So in about the week or 2 after filming that last video, I wrote Cammy's storyline. So I previously filmed that and I guess I accidentally deleted it. So I wish I remembered like what I may have said about it. But overall it went real good. I wrote the whole thing in about a week or 2, which is real good. It's about the same time it took me to write the first part of the book, Blade's storyline. So altogether it took me about 3 or 4 weeks to write the totality of book 3 of the series. So book 3 is written. Hey guys, it's me. I learned to speak. No, really, it's Sean behind the camera. Anyway, so I just wanted to let you guys know that this is kind of turned into a December writing update as well. Because last night I just finished book 4 of Blade of Perdition, so I'm really excited about that. So basically it took about a month, I think. So book 3 was, I think, 27 chapters, and book 4 wound up being 20 chapters. So not bad. When I began it, I didn't have altogether that much of an idea what to do. Basically, both Cammy and Blade are looking for a demon named Azazel, because in the start of book 3, the Archangel Michael returns. Michael, who was like the hero of the War in Heaven, Michael has been missing for like 2,000 years. And in the beginning of book 3, Michael reappears. And so Lucifer wants to find Azazel, because in the War in Heaven, Azazel, a demon, was the only one who like stood up to Michael. Like he's the only one who was like an even like opponent for Michael. So he wants to find Azazel. Everyone kind of wants to find Azazel because they know he is the only counter to Michael. But I was having some problems like figuring out how they actually go about finding him. Anyway, I don't want to go too much into the plot, but that's kind of all I knew about it, was that Cammy and Blade are both looking for Azazel. I kind of had a major breakthrough in brainstorming because I was trying to think like the motivations for each character and what each character, like what each side knows and what they would realistically do. And I kind of came to the conclusion that Cammy, who is with the angels at that time, really would have nothing to do. So I thought, what if for some reason Cammy like goes back to the demons and like rejoins with Blade? So that's basically what I had happen. So I figured out a reason why she would go back to the demons. So with book 3, the first part was Blade's storyline and the second part was Cammy's storyline. But with book 4, it's just mixed chapters. So it switches from his chapters to her chapters. Anyway, so that provided a lot of things I knew I could write about, just because it'd be different instead of just having Cammy with the angels, to instead have scenes with Cammy meeting up with the various demons. Anyway, so it all came together pretty well. I wrote most every night, so I felt pretty productive, and last night finished book 4, so pretty exciting. Don't go down there, boy. Back up you go. So I had previously actually written the very ending chapter of book 4, like even before I really wrote any part of the main series. Like I wrote the first like 3 or 4 chapters years ago. And then about a couple years back, I began writing just scenes in the middle of the series, like just any little scene I knew would have to come. And so one of the scenes I wrote was the ending of book 4. And I also wrote the first chapters of book 5. So last night, you know, I got to the final chapter of book 4 and I kind of like rewrote it to fit everything. It didn't actually require very many changes at all. It was real short though. It was probably only like 2 pages. And then chapter 1, I began to edit. Chapter 1, I began to edit last night, so I rewrote chapter 1 last night, and now I'm probably going to work on chapter 2. Again, it's already written, but I need to rewrite it now that I'm actually up to that point. So I am currently working on book 5, which is called Deceiver of Fools. So anyway, book 4 is done. I'm really glad about that. I'm real proud of that. So now working on book 5 of 9 of the main series. Say goodbye, Nibbler. Say goodbye to the people.